If I were to hold on to being disappointed that it didn't happen for me to be the speaker, that would mean I was focused on the past. I'd be resisting what happened rather than accepting what happened. And I've really learned deeply in my bones that that does not serve me. I want peace. I want peace more than anything else. And I can't have peace if I'm not in the present moment. And I can't have peace if I don't accept reality and what's actually happening rather than what I wanted to happen. Hi, I'm Barb Nangle. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery, where I help people heal their emotional, psychological, and spiritual wounds and make deep, lasting changes in their lives. I'm the founder and CEO of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting, LLC, where I coach people on how to develop healthy boundaries. On this podcast, I share my experience, strength, and hope from recovery. I don't support or endorse any particular 12-step recovery fellowship, and I don't claim to speak for any particular 12-step fellowship. I also don't believe that 12-step recovery is the only way to recover. You might need additional help. My hope is that you'll find my words concretely helpful in improving your life, whether you're in recovery or not. This is episode 132. Here's how to overcome disappointment so you can have peace. This past weekend, I was supposed to be the keynote speaker at the opening ceremony of a regional conference. And you may know this about me already, but I love a captive audience, probably why I'm a podcaster. As you can imagine, I was really looking forward to it. But apparently, my higher power had a different plan because instead, I took an ambulance to the emergency room. From the time I started to have symptoms, the thing I was most concerned about was whether I was going to be able to speak or not. It was only about a 90-minute period of time before I decided for certain I'm not going to be able to do it. But by then, I'd already notified the organizers that something was up and that it was possible I wasn't going to make it. Even though I was very much looking forward to this opportunity to speak in front of a captive audience on Zoom anyway, I am not at all disappointed. Now, this doesn't mean I wasn't looking forward to it. As I've said twice already, I was, very much. But I am not disappointed at all. And I want to explore why I think that is on this episode. When I talked with my sponsor about the situation afterwards, she told me that she hadn't been chosen to speak at this conference for the first time in 20 years. And she felt disappointed and even some resentment about it and had to do step work about it and speak with her sponsor about it. So she said, I really commend you. And I said, I don't feel like I need commendation. It's not like I'm trying to not be disappointed. I'm just not. And as we explored why that might be the case, I came to believe that I think it really has to do with acceptance. Now, I recorded an entire episode on acceptance. It's episode number 2, my third most popular episode. I'll put the link in the show notes if you want to listen to it. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here about how to become accepting, but I'm going to talk about the connection between acceptance and disappointment, as well as how my higher power fits into this. If I were terribly disappointed that I wasn't able to speak last Friday, that would have meant that I was holding on to the idea that I should have been the speaker. But the reality is, I wasn't. I accept that as reality. And I think the reason that I'm able to accept that so easily is not just because I've learned acceptance in general, but also because of my higher power. Now, I happen to call my higher power God, and I have my own definition of what that means, which you may or may not agree with. And my definition includes that God is all-knowing, or the fancy word for that is omniscient. So in my belief system, God knows everything at all times into eternity. And perhaps in this situation, God knew somebody else needed to speak at the convention that night. And I have faith that whatever my higher power is doing is for the greatest good of all beings. Hopefully, it's for my greatest good too. But at least I believe it's for the greatest good of all beings. And since I believe that, it's pretty easy to accept what happened. It doesn't matter if I understand or if I agree. What matters is that my faith in my higher power allows me to let go of shit that didn't turn out like I wanted it to, which allows me to have peace, which is what I want most. But let's see if I can use my tiny little human brain to come up with some possible good things that came out of this. One is that I got really clear on what's important, my health. Now, health is definitely one of my top values. So that night, I put my health first. Taking care of myself and reaching out for help are things I learned through 12-step recovery. So I took care of myself by reaching out immediately when I knew something was wrong. First, I reached out to my sweetheart and my sponsor and a friend who's a nurse, and then I called 911. I accepted all kinds of help, and I can tell you with damn near certainty that if this had happened in the past, I would have somehow tried to power through this situation. What I know now is there's no reason for me to suffer. An emergency room visit via ambulance was warranted. In terms of the highest good for the people of the convention, maybe more people needed to hear what my replacement had to say than what I did. My sponsor told me that the woman that ended up speaking in my place was someone who always does stuff behind the scenes. She volunteers for this conference all the time, but never as a speaker. And when they approached her with about 90 minutes to prepare, she said, "I'll pray about it." And then she said yes. So maybe this emergency situation was the push this woman needed to be able to tell her story. And maybe there was a message she shared that healed people's hearts that maybe I wouldn't have been able to share. I don't know these things, but I can use my limited brain to come up with just these few ideas of how good things might have come out of this incident. And since God is omniscient, there's an infinite possibility of other things that I'm not even capable of thinking of that could have been for the greatest benefit of all. If I were to hold on to being disappointed that it didn't happen for me to be the speaker, that would mean I was focused on the past. I'd be resisting what happened rather than accepting what happened. And I've really learned deeply in my bones that that does not serve me. I want peace. I want peace more than anything else. And I can't have peace if I'm not in the present moment. And I can't have peace if I don't accept reality and what's actually happening rather than what I wanted to happen. So the way to overcome disappointment is to accept things as they are. It doesn't mean you have to like them. It simply means you stop resisting and fighting against what actually happened. And you stop thinking it shouldn't have happened that way.